Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of the Improve Podcast, the official podcast of Classic Studios, where we are building a community of creatives who can hold themselves accountable to their goals. I'm your host, Chase Collins, and we have a great episode for you today where I get to talk to my friend Brian. We talk about some of our goals for this podcast and the projects we're working on. This was actually the first time I ever recorded anything with Brian, so it takes us a little bit of time to find our flow, but it's certainly a good listen and definitely worth the listen. So I hope you all enjoy that. But before we get to that, I mentioned last week on the first episode that I wanted this podcast to be an opportunity for people to check in with themselves on their goals, both personal and professional. And so I want everyone to take some time right now before this podcast gets started to just check in with themselves. What are your goals for this week? How are you doing? What do you want to accomplish? That's what I want this podcast to be all about, is setting goals for yourselves, checking in with yourselves, listening, at the start of the week. Let's hit the ground running. Let's set our goals and let's achieve those goals. Next week we can check in again and see if we accomplish them. My goals for this week, I wanted to release the Classic Studios announcement video. I wanted to run 10 miles. I wanted to get to the gym 5 times. And I'm also helping my sister on another project that she's working on. I know I didn't do any writing this week, which was something that I will talk more about at the end of this episode. So I'll let you all go, set your goals this week, check in with yourself either after this podcast or pause the podcast right now, and I'll let you get to the rest of the episode. So I'll see you at the end for the outro. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Hey, let's go. Alrighty.
Hello, Mr. Craig. Nice to meet you. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen.
Yeah, about to say, like, how do I stop watching this
Yeah, yeah, right. Well, cool, man. I really haven't done a lot of like thinking in terms of how this is gonna work in terms of like structure and stuff like that. I'm kind of just wanting to really catch up, use this like an opportunity to catch up and like figure out what you're up to, man. And talk about maybe what I'm up to, all that type of stuff. Nothing, no real agenda. Just wanna catch up. What's life been like?
Cool, man. Yeah, it's been good.
Nice. That's always
No,
good.
yeah, appreciate you. I appreciate you having me on the podcast, man.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
it's things have been pretty like I don't know, both crazy and both like, not crazy at all at the same time.
Yeah,
Um,
because you've had so much going on in the last like 3 months or 4 months especially, but also just in general, like the last year. I feel like it's just been crazy.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of desensitized to that feeling of like, oh my God, because I've been so crazy busy. Um,
Yeah.
I, or I've, I have been crazy busy in the past few months. So being busy now is a little bit like I just don't feel it. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, we bought the house 2 months ago, I guess. Jeez. Um, Bought the house and then just we've been getting settled in and everything and now I'm realizing that there's a honey-do list that's like,
Mm.
uh, I guess not a honey-do list, but just a to-do list for the entire house. That's just enormous. Um, the last house we had, it was a condo, so a lot of the things were pretty well taken care of.
Hmm.
Not a whole lot of maintenance, like just wasn't anything really. But
Right.
for this house, dude, there's like all kinds of stuff. Even just the yard, like talk about a to-do list for just the yard, like overwhelming. There's just like, oh my god, there's a ton of stuff to do.
Yeah.
Um, but thankfully, nothing is like super pressing, so we're just kind of getting through it. And then last week, that kid Michael gave me COVID. So
No way. Did Michael have COVID too?
so he came over on Tuesday, and we lifted. We had a nice little lifting sesh, and
Nice.
then that night he came home and he didn't tell me, but he got sick. Like he felt sick after being at my house, and then he was sick for like a week, and then
What?
I got sick like days later, and I took a
Mm,
COVID test because you know
that's what you
nowadays you
do.
get sick. Yeah, you get sick, you get a cold. You're like, oh, let's make sure it's not COVID before I give it to people.
Yeah.
So it was a positive test, and then I text Michael and I'm like, hey man, just to let you know, like I tested positive for COVID, and he was like, oh, are you feeling sick too? And I'm like,
Oh my God.
and I was like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, dude, I've been sick for like a week. And I'm like, why didn't you tell me? Like, you were over at my house, you
Fuck.
didn't tell. Like, hey, man, just a heads up.
Yeah.
Like, you know, um, but no, he never tested for COVID.
He didn't test or anything.
Um,
Was that his first run with COVID? I'm sure that's what it was.
well, in 2019, um, he had what he thought was the flu, but that
Mm-hmm.
was it was I guess it was not 2019. I guess it was like February of 2020 when like a bunch of people in hindsight, I'm sorry if you can hear my dog. Um, God damn it. Shut up. But in hindsight, like a lot of people were like, "Oh yeah, I got sick, but it was probably COVID." Um,
Right. 'Cause
so he was,
there's no tests available or whatever.
yeah. Can you hear him?
I couldn't at first, but now I can. Yeah.
I don't
Is he
know.
outside?
No, he's yeah. Give me one sec. Sorry.
No, you're good. Man, I think it is so funny that Michael got COVID or probably had COVID and didn't tell Bryant. That's just like I would expect nothing less from Michael, man. That dude's a
Hey,
legend.
come on, come on. Good boy. We're doing a podcast. You better behave, buddy.
That's right. We're doing a podcast. You tell that dog what's up. Milo, don't make me fly up to Virginia.
You're just being a crackhead, dude.
Crackhead dogs and my
All right.
favorite kind of dogs.
Um, so anyways, yeah, I've just been dealing with that the last week. But it hasn't been too bad. Just like
Nice.
totally zapped. Um, but yeah, anyways,
Of
dude.
like your energy and stuff like that.
Yep, yep. Around like I don't know, 5 or 6 p.m. every night, I just get so tired.
Mm,
Um, and probably part of the reason is I haven't been going easy at all,
nice.
which is kind of cool. Like I told COVID off for sure.
Yeah, dude. Oh my
Um,
gosh. That reminds me of like this time. This was like a couple, maybe like a month ago now. I was getting really burnt out, I guess, because I was working really hard on like starting the podcast and starting the company. And like I was pushing hard to finish this script. And I could feel it, you know that feeling, like, in the back of your head, it's like, "Oh,
yeah,
no, something's creeping up on me," like, I can tell, like, I gotta start taking my multivitamins again, like, I gotta start fighting this off now, which means it's already too late, but so I couldn't sleep, so at 11:30, I went on a run because I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna tire my body out, I'm gonna get become super sleepy," and then, of course, that didn't help at all, I was just really tired at like 12:30 when I got back from my run. And I didn't go to bed till like 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning. And I woke up with like a super high fever and I had to sleep for like 2 days straight to recover. And that's all it was. It was just like I was so sleep deprived that I had to go to bed and like slept for 4 hours, broke my fever. I had like a 102-degree fever and it
holy
eventually
moly.
broke after like just sleeping. That's what I needed. Needed some
When
sleep. My body told me
when
to
was
slow down.
that? This was like pretty recently.
Yeah, it was like a month ago. I thought it was COVID. I tested myself and it came back negative. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna keep working or whatever. And yeah, just had to
Gotcha.
sleep it off, catch up on some sleep. My body told me to slow down, Chase. You're doing too much.
Yeah, I never really had a fever. I was high for like one day, but I never got to that like 100, so I felt like I could push forward,
Hmm.
which was nice because, dude, being sick is such a shitty feeling. Um, just like not being able to like half of it is just the fact that you're like, oh man, I can't really do much. Um, so like being like forcing myself to be active was such a good idea because physically I felt great. Like when I was running and when I was lifting, um, it was just like before and afterwards where I felt like beforehand, just that like sedentary, like, oh my God, I'm sick. Like I slept like shit last night. And then
Mm.
during the workout, it was perfect. It's like, oh, here we go. Like I'm firing on all cylinders. And then after the workout, it was like, oh, I'm sick again. And I need to like, I just went on a run. My body needs to recover. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, it's been, I don't know. My voice is probably like super messed up right now, but other than that, like it's pretty much passed, which is really nice. I don't know. Being sick it sucks, but it's also fun every now and then because I'm sick so rarely that it's like,
Hmm.
oh, cool. I get to like it's an excuse to just kind of withdraw a little bit. Um,
Yeah.
but now I'm definitely like I haven't seen. I've been to the grocery store a couple times. After since being contagious, I'm no longer contagious.
Right.
But other than those people at the grocery store and Katie, like I haven't seen anybody in a week and some change.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely like itching to like socialize.
Yeah, man. I know what you mean. Oh gosh, there's so many ways I want to take the conversation. My sister's actually coming down tomorrow, so I'll get to socialize with her a little bit. I'm excited to do that.
Oh, nice, nice.
She has
We're
a little layover.
okay, nice. So it's just her then.
Yeah, just her. She's working. She has an Orlando layover, and so we're gonna get to hang out. We're gonna do some writing, man. Like maybe even have an in-person podcast. Like, oh, I'm pumped about that.
Dude,
Get
very
it on
cool, very cool.
get it on voice memos, just press record.
I love no. That's awesome, man.
Um, yeah, man, it'll be fun. I've really talking to her has been so great for like it's honestly one of the reasons why I wanted to start this podcast because my conversations with Amber have just been so like productive and she's a writer as well. She has amazing stories that she's like outlined and has started writing, but has never really finished them before. And that's one of the reasons, like, I think a problem a lot of us have is like starting projects and never seeing them like to completion. And that's like why I want to start this thing. So it's like all of our projects, like we can hold each other accountable to and like improve along the way and just get it finished. Like that's the whole point of this is so we can constantly like be workshopping and like pushing ourselves to actually like yield fruit from our, efforts, whatever the
Yeah,
phrase
man.
is.
It's such a good idea because it doesn't matter like what your goals are. Like you and Amber are like writers.
Mm,
Uh like Michael also has like that creative like goals that that he has. But like I don't
yes.
really have any of those. I my goals are totally like in a different realm than that. But
Yeah.
we all come together and at the end of the day, like a goal is a goal and like we can hold each other accountable, like you said.
Yes. And that's like what I'm really excited about too is I don't know, the diversity of like our group or whatever this podcast is. Like it's so out there and like oh man, you know how we have like our accountability group which is separate from this podcast, which I love. I love that we have like two accountability groups. Um with like that's strictly for working out and fitness and just overall health and like that is something where like Jeremy he said like I love that it's not really a competition, it's like we're uplifting each other, we're being encouraging. And like in the back of my head I'm like yes I agree with you but also like I'm competing with you guys, like I want to be the best at working out, like but there's no way to prove that I'm the best or like prove that you're the best because we're doing completely different workouts, it's like there's no way to compare the 2. It's like it's literally apples to oranges, like, you
Yeah.
cannot compare, like, what we're doing, but, like, it doesn't matter. Like I'm still gonna work super hard in order to make sure that like I'm the best at what I'm doing because I know like all four of you guys are working just as hard as me. And it's just
Yeah.
fun. It's like a great mindset to have, or I've enjoyed it at least.
And like at the end of the day, like us competing with each other, like even though there's no like measurable outcome or not, there's no measurable victor or anything like that, but like we're still all improving at the same time. Like at the end of the day, it's a rising tide lifts all boats.
Yes, exactly. And like, pulling that mindset to this podcast, like it's our goals are completely different. Like I'm really trying to do this writing and like film production stuff. And then like I don't even know what you want to bring to the table. Like I have no idea what originally I was thinking it was gonna be music or like what, but I have no idea what your goals are. I know you have like, you're learning a language and you're reading a book.
Yeah, man, I taught myself how to read. I'm very proud.
Dude,
Um,
that's
I can
impressive. I
I
need to
can
read
read.
more.
I can finally read in English.
Hell yeah, man. It only took you 29 years, 35 years, Brian, you old m no, just kidding.
um, yeah, you know, that's what's really cool about this is that we can all bring whatever we want to the table, and it's like no one's goal is better or less than anyone else's. It's like this is just what I'm doing, and like that's like I'm holding myself accountable, and I'm holding you guys accountable too. So it's just a really really cool concept.
Yeah,
It's also cool because we're not, how do I say this? We're not like famous people or just like celebrities or influencers in any way. Like we're just totally like we're not experts either. We're just totally normal
yes,
people that are just like I'm gonna get good at this. Like let me see how far I can take this.
yes, that's
Which,
something,
which
like, I sorry, it's kinda cutting out, so if I'm over talking to you, it's, like, not because I'm trying to, it's because it's cutting out, so I think there's a pause in the audio, so I'm like, "Okay, let me jump in." Um, but what I was gonna say, as I was cutting you off, was the like, that's exactly the premise or, like, one of the thoughts I had when I'm, like, working on, like, some of the promo material for this is, like, we're not experts, like, we don't know what the fuck we're doing, we're just figuring it out and we're documenting it, like, so you're gonna see, like, the mistakes and, like, the failures and hopefully we have some successes, but, like, who knows? It could all go really bad, and you'll get to find out as we do in real time, and it'll be, like, pretty embarrassing, I'm sure, at certain points.
yeah, it's like there's gonna be lessons learned definitely along the way. Hopefully this isn't a one just giant example of like, oh well, don't do what they did.
Yeah, yeah. If you wanna improve, like, listen to this podcast and do the opposite. Like, that's how we do it.
There's gonna be like studies one day, like, oh yeah, so this group of people like they figured out exactly how to like not do it. So,
Yeah. Maybe, like
um,
it's because maybe it's the diversity factor. It's like because we all have different groups, like, or we all have different goals. Like none of us were able to achieve one thing because we're all invested in everyone else's project. Like, there you go. That's the lesson. It's like what we thought
yeah,
was such a unique, made us different. Is like, oh well, that's why people don't do this. Is because it doesn't work.
it's like yeah, I didn't achieve my goals, but like I know a little bit more about screenplays now.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but hey, like for a worst case, that's not bad.
Yeah. Yes, man. Exactly. And like that's what, it's that rising tide. Like even oh man, and that's what's so fun. Like why I like this podcast being, really like low stakes. Of course, like we're holding each other accountable to all of our goals and as we like get through I think this initial like recording session and like maybe the first 5 or 10 recordings it's going to be like just still figuring out our flow and what are our goals actually going to be and how do we talk about them in a coherent way that doesn't mm, like that doesn't sound like unintelligible to people but man I forgot where I was going with that but once we figure it out like I think it'll be a great way to I don't know, share. I forget where I was going with that point. Sorry, man.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Um, it's just it's a really it's gonna be a cool little like journey, something that like we're all gonna think pretty fondly of at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. And like, oh, yeah, I remember where I was going with that point. Is like it's super low stakes, but like we're taking it seriously, but like it also does like I think of this podcast as like the side project to my side project. Like my main focus is writing and like writing screenplays and trying to get those turned into feature films. Like that's my main goal. And like it's like, well, if I'm doing that, it's like, well, I might as well start a company. And then if I'm starting a company, it's like, well, I might as well document that progress. And how do I do that? It's like, well, that's through a podcast. So let me start a podcast too. So it's like there's so many different layers to like my objectives that the stakes become super low because like I'm spread so thin. And that's why it's, I'm trying to keep it casual. Just like, yeah, we have all these goals. Let's talk about it. But like that's you know, it's just a way to document it. It's just like in work when you have, um, your goals. Like if you have your end of year evaluation, like if you don't document everything that you're doing throughout the year, you're gonna forget like 50% of what you did. And so it's in your best interest to document all of that effort and like projects and completions, whatever you get accomplished throughout the year. It's in your best interest to do that. And I'm
Yeah,
taking that philosophy and applying it to this, effort, whatever it is, like
yeah.
screenwriting.
And on that note too, like you mentioned like the end of year evaluation. Like to me, and I think that we're all gonna find this as well. Like the end result is certainly something to work for and work towards, and it's something that is tangible. Like achieving your goals is a tangible thing,
Hmm.
but like you have to enjoy the journey of it. Like the destination is one thing, but like to really become good at things, like you have to have that approach of enjoying the process. Like it's the process that you get better at, and that um yeah. God damn, this is all great in my head, trust me. It's just um enjoying the process of getting there, and living in the moment, and just like grinding day by day, like that being good at that and enjoying that process makes the end goal um less of like a like a
It's
daunting
less of a
task.
chore.
Yeah, it's less of a
Hmm.
chore, and it's just like day in day out, like I'm enjoying the process, if that makes sense.
Oh, it totally does. And like that's something that really clicked with me like a couple of weeks ago. I've been working on either starting a podcast or starting a company or writing scripts for like the last, 6 to 8 months, let's say. And I only and it's really because I finished my master's degree in April, and, like, then I had all this free time, and it was like, "What am I supposed to do with myself?" Like, I played video games for, like, a month or a couple months, with you, and then it was like, "Okay, well, that got old, like, let's figure out what else we wanna do," and I've always had the script in the back of my mind. It's like, "Alright, well, I wanna start writing this, so let me do that." And then, it just snowballed in my fever dream mania of, like, turning, just where we are now, and I learned like a couple weeks ago, it's like I wouldn't have it any other way. Like if all of this doesn't amount to anything, I would still be doing it because I love the process of like, from like coming up with a great idea for a screenplay to, outlining and like creating a beat sheet and creating a storyboard and creating um a a treatment and then like a full outline. It's just like I love all of those steps, and then I haven't even put words on the page yet that'll actually end up in the script, and it's like I love every step of it. It's so much fun, and I wouldn't be doing anything else. And I want to document that process of like, yeah, it's so much fun. Like, why isn't everyone doing this? Like, optimizing their time to be working on all of like, there's so much opportunity out there. Like, I hope that this inspires people to like wow, look at all this free time I have. Like, let me capitalize on that in the best ways that I'm capable of. Because it's so
Yeah,
gratifying.
yeah. Like at the end of the day, I've gotten into the habit of evaluating, like, did I spend my time wisely today? Like, do I feel good about, and it doesn't have to be productive. Like, it doesn't have to be 100% productive, but like, did even in my non-productive time, like, was that time well spent? And it's so important to just have that like reflection too of
Mhm.
um yeah, like, am I being effective with the small amount of time that I've been given, like, of with life? Like, what
Right.
did I do today, kind of deal. Tag. Tag, motherfucker.
Dude, yes, um I love that, and, like, I really like the words you use, like, of reflection. Like, I want that to be a big part of, like, this podcast is, like, reporting on in a way of, like, "What did you do this week, man? Like, tell me about it." Like, what were the things you worked on in order to reach your goal? Because and maybe it's like, "No, man, I hit a writer's block, and, like, I wasn't able to crack this scene or whatever, and like, could you work through it with me? Like, this is the steps that I'm going, or these are the steps my character's taking, but I don't know where to take it from here. Like, do you have any ideas?" And like, I want it to become like potentially a workshopping session or just a reflection session of like, yeah, I was able to accomplish this, this, and this. And like, that's what I have to report out. And I'm super proud of it. It's like, that's badass. I love that for you. Great job. Like, I think it could be so versatile.
Yeah, it's gonna evolve. I have a feeling that it's definitely going to change as we all get into it, because there's so many different types of people involved. And like, one person might have this, like, these sessions that go in one direction, but someone else, it could go in a completely different direction, and then all of a sudden there's all these different stories told in different ways, and I think that's going to be really cool.
Yeah, I I'm really excited to see what it turns into as well. And I wanna I don't know, there's so many options too. Like I know what something you mentioned when we were on that run together, right? When I first like pitched this idea, I was like, um, you said like, oh, maybe we could even like use this to turn into like a pod or a video, like a YouTube video or something like that. Somehow like glean like the best bits of our conversations and turn them into something. And like I think that's a great idea. Like I don't think I'll be able to do that just because I have too much on my plate right now. But like I think for you or for Michael or for somebody else who's a part of the roster, it's like, yeah, this is a great um mine, or like I don't know, it's like a gold mine of like potentially great video concepts that could be, or great concepts that could be turned into great videos. Potentially, maybe it all sounds like shit, who knows.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We don't know what it's gonna look like, but um, we'll definitely have the content there, because everything's gonna be recorded. Um, and at the end of this, maybe we look at it and we're like, this is gold. Like, we gotta put this out somewhere.
Yeah.
In more places and different platforms and stuff. So, what are your goals with the podcast? Like, what do you want to achieve with this podcast?
Like the one we just were recording right now, or in the like
Not like this particular session, but just in general. Like, I know we've kind of been talking about it. I'm interviewing you now.
um yeah, let me think about that. So the overall goals with the podcast. Well, I don't exactly know. Like I don't know. It's like cuz my goals, I really just want to be able to talk to people about the projects that I am working on, and I want to be able to talk to people about oh man, actually, yeah, actually have a good answer for that. Scrap all what I just said. So I, this accountability group, like I'm really like I get it from my dad. He's a super driven individual and like is able to set like be very disciplined and set goals and like requirements for himself and is able to operate within that very well, like at an extremely high level. And it's like really impressive. Like he's the reason why I wake up at 5 a.m. every day to go on a run because he did that as I was growing up and I didn't realize it. But he totally taught me that good behavior of like waking up at 5, getting your workout in, and then going to your work, your 9 to 5 after that. It's like that's so impressive. And I've taken that from him. And like I'm also a control freak and I get that from my mom. So I'm like structuring my whole life to be like super specific and setting my goals so that they're achievable and I can accomplish them. And I am working with, my cousin and all my friends, and I want them to be able to be just as like accomplished. And not that like what I'm doing is perfect or like what I'm accomplishing all my goals because I'm not. Like I'm fucking up all the time, but like I really want everyone in my life to be performing at a high level. And that's what I want this podcast to do is to help enable my friends and my family to perform at like a super high level. And once we do that, I think we can accomplish that. And once that happens, I really want to open up this improved podcast to the whole audience. Whoever's listening, like it's probably 5 people, and like, hi, mom. All of our parents are listening to this. Maybe, probably not even that, because who would want to do that? But like, I hope if we ever grow an audience, like we can launch our own Discord server or we can launch our own subreddit to have like a group of creative individuals or just driven individuals who are all working towards something. And there's like a collective energy of just something in the air, something like over the internet that's like, wow, whenever I go to this subreddit or whenever I'm on this Discord, it's like such a motivating, such a encouraging and like welcoming and like maybe judgment free like zone where it's like I am gonna be productive when I'm here, and that's what I want this to be. Is I want people to be listening to this and check in with themselves like as we're reflecting on on our goals. I want the listener to be reflecting on their goals and like what did I accomplish this week, like what was my improved podcast goal that I can check in on once a week when I listen to this podcast and see what happens, and I'll make a post about it or something like that. That's what I want for this podcast is to be like a community, to develop a community of like creatives who are driven to accomplish their goals.
Nice. That's yeah, well said. That's awesome. Yeah, I think a lot of people um like they have the tools that they need to think a certain way or to achieve whatever they want, but like a lot of the times they're just not really aware of it. Um so bringing this into like a broader audience would be really cool because it would give people the opportunity to be like, oh, these are just regular people like achieving what they want to do. Like a lot of people, they like go to work and like they don't really have any like anything that they do with their own time for themselves. It's just like a lot of distractions and like whatever, hanging out and just like killing time and stuff like that. But there's so much out there to do and to learn. And like by the time the regular person, I say regular person, not condescendingly, but just like naturally as we just go along in age, like the
Mhm.
older we get, the more and more we realize that we don't have any more time. And it's like, oh shit, I should have started this 5, 10, 20 years ago. So getting in front of all that and starting early with just it doesn't have to be anything big, but small goals, like just in a direction that you want to go in. Like be the master of your own life, be the main character.
Yes.
Like if if your goal is to uh be the best like friendship bracelet creator, like whatever, like go do it. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't
Yes.
have to be like it's what you want to do. Just be good at it and get some kind of satisfaction from it.
Yes. And that's when I was a kid, and this proves to just freaking how big of a weirdo I was, like growing up. Like, I wrote this giant novel. It was like 700 pages and I thought that's what everybody was doing because it's like it just made sense to me. So I was like, wait, what do you mean? Like, where's your book? You haven't written one yet? Like, dude, you're behind the curve. And what I'm really grateful of, like talking to you, because my goals are very creative, and like your goals like aren't necessarily in that wheelhouse. Like, not saying they don't have to be, but just on our conversation. And it's like that's something I need to keep in mind, is like not everyone is gonna have the same goals as me. Or and that's good. Like that's a good thing. I want this podcast, this community to be for everyone, for anyone who has like a a goal that they want to be held accountable to in some way. I want this to be a home for them.
Exactly. Yeah. It really it kind of irks me when people don't like work for themselves. Like when I don't know, like when they don't when they don't see the opportunity that they can make their life what they want it to be. Like they just have to do the things. Um, it's like I don't
Yeah.
know, get like what are you interested in? Or like, do do you like playing tennis? Like, go play tennis. Like, go get good at tennis. Like, you don't have to be the
Right.
best at it. You don't have to take it super seriously, but like, whatever. Just have have a good time. stop,
Mhm.
stop
But
being
at
so
least
like
do
sad.
something.
Yeah, stop being so sad all the time. Like so many people are just like they get trapped in that cycle, of just being
Yes.
like sad and depressed. And it's like you got to break that cycle.
Right, and it's only on you, like, nobody's gonna break it for you. It's something you
Yeah.
have to, like, find within yourself to say, like, "Okay, I'm unhappy, and the only person who can break me from this unhappiness is myself." And I think what I wanna, like, hone in on is, like, this phrase of like autopilot, just being on autopilot. It's like, yep, I'm supposed to wake up at 8 o'clock, get to my job at 9, get off by 5, watch TikTok for 3 hours, and then go to bed, or watch TV for 3 hours and then go to bed and do it all over again. It's like you got to turn off that autopilot. You got to take control of like your emotions, take control of your time, like all of your time. You have to not be accountable for every second of every day, because I'm sure as hell not. Like I totally goof off. Like I waste more time than I should, especially with all this stuff on my plate. But at least like the most of it, I'm I'm like working towards something. I'm trying to, at least, and like I think I'm just a guy. We're just people who are like figuring it out. Like you could do this. It's not impossible. It's not unobtainable. It's like there's people who are doing it, and like the only difference between you and them is just like the first step.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, you don't have to just, it's not about like work or like, work as in like earning an income, if
Mhm.
that's your thing, then that's your thing. But for so many people it's like not their thing, and they have other things, but they're like, oh, I just like this isn't I can't do this because it's not going to make me any money, or like, you know I can't do this for this reason or that reason. And it's just like, dude, just go out and do it. Like, who cares? Like,
Yeah,
just
and that's
do what you want to do.
yeah, that's like exactly the what I was touching on, like even if, but you have to like fall in love with that process, right? Like even because like I'm not making any money off of these scripts that I'm writing. I'm not making any money off this podcast or this company. It's like I'm just doing it because that's what I'm compelled to do as like someone who wants to make the most of my time. But it's probably gonna, odds are it's gonna result in nothing. Like that's the harsh reality of it. But I would not do anything differently. Like it's what I want to be doing with my free time. Like ever since I finished my master's degree, it's like okay, well now I have all this free time on my hands. I'm gonna be working on something. Like I have to. It's in my bones. Like I can't not do it. And I love the process of it.
Yeah. And
Maybe
you
yeah, go ahead.
probably weren't, you probably were not like born like that. Some people are. You might have been, I don't know. But it's just finding
Yeah.
that like doing it and then finding out for yourself like, oh, this is a good feeling, and then just continuing to build on it.
Man, that's so true. I was definitely not born like this. I don't know what snapped. Like I definitely think something I don't know if something broke or if something clicked, but it's like now I can't stop. It's just like maybe I honestly, dude, I think it's that, people say until you're 25, you're like not fully developed as a human. Like your prefrontal
Yeah.
cortex isn't fully developed. It's like boom, as soon as I hit 25, it's like, okay, I'm no longer an idiot. It's time to start like taking my life seriously. And that's honestly, that's like the only logical reason I can come up with is like yeah, I was a complete moron until I was 25. And, like, I'm gonna look back at myself in 5 years and be like, "Wow, Chase, you were an idiot until you were 29." But we'll see, I don't
I
know.
wonder if that's the case though. Like maybe when you're like 35, you're like, no, when I was 25, I like that's when I figured it out. We just don't have that benefit of time in hindsight.
Yeah, because 'cause we're yeah.
We're in it
Yeah,
right now.
we are, we're, like, in the middle of it, man. And, like yeah, because I didn't start waking up in the morning to go running until, like, yeah, I was 25. Like, actually honestly, probably the month after I turned 25, it was, like, April of 2021, I started waking up to go running, and now I'll never stop. It's just the best thing for me. It's, like it's so gratifying.
More power to you, dude.
Yeah, I like it. I think everyone should do it, and I think you're a bad person if you don't. No, I'm just kidding.
uh,
Oh, man, did
yeah,
we do it? Did we do the podcast?
I think so.
Dude, I think we might have done the podcast. Man, so I'm gonna go off on a tangent here, as we're wrapping up. Um, I've been writing, trying to write like promotional material for this podcast and for the company, and I've been struggling with like how to do it. Like, it's one thing to like talk about my goals with like my sister or my family or whatever, but to, like, script it out and try to tell the story with the purpose of trying to get people to listen to, like, a 45-minute podcast, it's like, how the do you do that? How do you craft I don't know, I don't know how to, and that's why I was struggling so hard, but I think talking this out with you, who's, like, tangentially, sort of from afar, you're aware of, like, this idea of the podcast that we've been throwing it around for the past couple of months, but like we haven't really had a chance to sit down and really discuss it, and I'm so happy our first time sitting down and discussing it was recorded, because this has given me like such, I think, great content. Again, like we were talking about earlier, it's such like when I listen back to edit this, like I'm gonna be like, boom, I'm gonna pull this section and turn that into the trailer potentially for the podcast, and like I think it could be it was just super helpful, man. So I'm super grateful for you and, you know, doing this with me.
Dude, absolutely. Yeah, for thanks for having me on the show. Are you gonna like reach out to like Michael and them and do a practice run with those guys too, just to see how it goes?
I am, yeah. So I actually so I recorded once with my sister and I recorded once with my cousin. And all of it I think can't be used because the audio sounds so bad because I was doing like Bluetooth through Google Voice, and you like pushing me to do it through the Discord, I think is like, oh, it's the answer. Like this is how we have to do it. And I think I can just download the app on my sister's phone when she's here tomorrow and like say, okay, I'm gonna call you on this app now and I'll record it. So like don't worry about it. And I think it'll be straightforward enough. But um
Yeah, this sounds a lot better than the phone. I mean, it's like night and day.
yeah, I think so too. So I definitely think this is the answer, and so yes, sorry, that was a tangent. I'm getting tired. But yeah, so I want to record one with Michael and with you know, a couple of other folks. And honestly, man, I really want to open this up to people who I'm like not even close friends with. Like sort of just turn it into like, hey, you're someone who's like, Ryan, you know Ryan from he reached out to me when I posted my video on Instagram. He was like, dude, I love that video. If you're starting a company, man, let me know. I'm actually a lawyer now in New York and I'll help you incorporate. I was like, yeah, man, do you want to be on my podcast?
Oh yeah,
Like, I want to open it up to just anyone. Like, hey, you're like a high achieving individual. Like, what did you do? Like, how did you set your goals? Like, what steps did you take to get to where you're at? And even, I don't know. I think the possibilities are endless with this podcast, man.
absolutely, man. It's a cool idea. Um, I'm excited to see where it goes.
Me too. Well, I'm gonna stop Craig, and maybe we can just sign off, offline or whatever. But that was the podcast, dude. Thank you so much. That was sick.
Yeah, man. How often do you think the calls will be?
Oh man, so I was thinking about this. So originally I was thinking of like 15 minutes conversations, and maybe that's what it'll become in the future, but every conversation I've had, like with my sister, with JD, and with you, has been over like 45 minutes long. And it's like, I'm not going to compile all of those into one podcast and have it be like 3 hours long. So I say all that because originally I was going to call everyone once a week for 15 minutes and compile it into like an hour long podcast split up between four different conversations, four different 15-minute conversations. But if all of our podcasts are going for like 45 minutes long, it's like maybe I'll call everyone once a month and it'll just be like a monthly rotation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. It's that's tough to say. I'm sure that's something that I guess as you go on, you'll figure out like what the best model will be.
Yeah. And what's great about it is like what's great about having like a big like roster, a big team who's like willing to do this with me is if someone like, "Hey, man, I didn't get anything done," or like, "Hey, I'm sick," or "Hey, I don't feel like talking right now," it's like, "Okay, no problem, man. I'll just move on to the next guy or move on to the next person and just have a conversation with them." So some people like maybe I'll talk to them twice a month or some people I'll talk to twice a week and that's just how it'll go. It's like, yeah, this is the person who is available to talk this week and that's why you're hearing them back to back like 3 weeks in a row. It's like, yeah, sorry, but it's not like it's the same conversation. It's like we're always progressing. We're always moving forward with our talks and stuff. So hopefully it
Badass,
doesn't
dude.
get stale or bored or whatever. I don't know.
No, because people will be making progress and everything.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, I'm
My
gonna stop
my
this recording,
Spanish will
man.
get better. Alrighty, dude. Bye, Craig.
Oh my goodness, what a podcast. I told you I'd be back for the outro, and here I am. I am back, and I am ready to talk to you about your goals. Man, I've just been listening, or I'm not going to talk to you about your goals. I'm going to talk to you about my goals, just to show that I am also working towards things and that you should be working towards things too. And I'm just a guy, and anyone can be listening. Anyone can be working towards goals. It doesn't take you to be like a super driven, super fancy, super smart celebrity person to do things. You just got to do things and then you'll become those people. Or so I'm told. It was so funny listening back to this episode, listening back to it and editing it now because it's been like maybe 3 or 4 weeks since we recorded that, and it'll be another couple of weeks since now before it's released to the public. So it's just funny to see like how my thought processes have evolved and hopefully how my presentation skills have evolved because this was the very first time ever really recording the podcast with the intent of releasing it. I know I said that I recorded a couple of demos with my cousin and my sister and that was very true. But this was like the first time I was sitting down at my desk, notes in front of me, looking at a microphone or looking at a computer screen, talking into a microphone and talking with someone else who was, we were bantering back and forth. We were trying to have a good flow, and it was definitely fun and a different type of exercise. And oh my goodness, I can't wait to talk to you guys about my goals, because listening back to this, like, I was super motivated. I was talking like at 1,000,000 miles a minute at certain points, just really excited about running and um, working out and being the screenwriter and wanting to do all these things. And I still want to do all of those things, but there was just such a like motivated innocence, and I felt that energy in my voice. Yeah, motivated, innocent energy in my voice. And like now it's been a couple of weeks since then, or maybe even a month since then, and my perspective has already changed and evolved. And it's so interesting to see. Like, so for I mentioned up at the top of this podcast that my goals were to run 10 miles this week, and I haven't ran 10 miles. This is like the first week in like 5 or 6 weeks that I haven't run 10 miles yet. It's Friday right now when I'm recording, and I'm going to get 10 miles. I'm at 5 right now. So I have 5 more miles to go, and I have three days to do it, and I'm going to get it done, but I haven't done it yet. And that's because I haven't been waking up at 5 in the morning to go running. I've been waking up at 5, but I've been catching up on work. I've been working on some other projects, like the company stuff. That's what I've been using that hour, that 5 o'clock hour before I start work at 6, instead of running. So like, and I have an excuse of why I wasn't running. It was because my shoes are bad. I think the soles have worn out. So I bought some new shoes. They're supposed to arrive today, and then I'm so excited to hit the pavement tomorrow morning and go running, get a solid 5K in, and then the next day run probably 2 miles, and then I'll be at 5 miles. So I'll get my 10 miles in, but I haven't done it yet. And it's so funny listening back to this podcast and hearing me be so motivated, and how like, oh, I'm gonna be running, and that's why I do it, because I feel so good. And that's so true. It was just like a great reminder of why I do those things. Like this week, it's been a crazy week and hectic and busy, and something had to give, and what gave was my running, even though it's something I need for my physical health, my mental health, and just maintaining my stress levels. Running is a great outlet for that for me. And I totally failed on accomplishing that goal so far. Normally I'm at like 7 to 8 miles by Friday, and right now I'm at 5, so I'm like pretty far behind on what my normal pace is. And it's just really interesting. Some other things that I wanted to work on, the Classic Studios announcement video. So I released that on Wednesday. That was something I did accomplish this week. That took a ton of work to get that off the ground. Several different versions and several different edits. If you watch that video, you see there's a point where I cut from the actual video and I talk directly to the camera like a vlogger. And that's because the scene that I had written and sketched out didn't work in the editing bay. I couldn't get it to work properly, so I had to cut the whole thing and insert this other version in order to better convey the information. And the information was like a little fun challenge for people to come search for the Improved Podcast name. And that was a fun little game. I thought people would have fun with that, get some more engagement. And a couple of people did. Actually, just one person did. And shout out to Christiana. She's awesome. Super great person. Really encouraging. So that was what I accomplished this week. I hope you have set your goals, and if you haven't, as soon as I'm done talking, I hope you set your goals for next week, because next podcast I'm going to be asking again. I'm going to ask if you checked in with yourself. I'm going to be asked if you're listening to yourself, if you're setting goals, if you feel that pit in your stomach that's like, oh no, I didn't do anything productive this week. It's like, uh-oh, what happened? And also, I want to caveat that by saying, like, just because you feel like you didn't do anything, odds are you probably did something, right? Like, I didn't get to run this week, but I know I worked really hard at my job. And so that's how I'm able to take or be okay with myself. Like, even if I don't hit 10 miles, like, I know that I had to work really hard, and I'm on call this weekend for my job. So there's other ways where I was productive. And I also got to work on this project with my sister, which I'm so excited about. She's working on a children's book, and she just finished the drawings, and I'm helping her edit some of the photos, and I'm really excited about that. So that was another project I got to work on this week, and it's was so much fun, sort of having a switch up. And something I mentioned also up at the top was that I didn't write anything this week, and it's been something I've been wanting to do because I love writing. It's the whole reason why I'm starting all of this, but I didn't get a chance to write this week, and that was something that was really frustrating. And I think that's just something that happens, you know. Sometimes you don't get to do what you want to do because of external circumstances in your life, but you're gonna do it the next time, you know. Just because you miss your 10-mile goal this week doesn't mean you stop running. It means you get back, you put those shoes on, and you hit the pavement the next day so that you can reach your goals. And that's one of my big goals this year is to finish my second screenplay. And I haven't even finished, not even outlining, like I haven't even gotten the story down. That's something I realized yesterday as I was falling asleep. I was thinking about this screenplay that I want to write, and I'm wrestling with these characters and their motivations and the story that they're going on, and something clicked in my head, like, I don't even know what the ending of this thing is. Like, why am I even outlining this? I don't even know the ending. I need to go back to the storyboarding process or something. I need to shake myself out of this funk that I'm in and get back to figuring out the story. Like, I can't, it's so funny like that I overlooked that. And it's because this story has gone through a couple of different rewrites and treatments that and I forgot to write the ending. Like, I had an idea of like, oh, what's the last line this character is going to say? And I had an idea, but it's not an ending. It's just like some poignant statement that the character says. And I need to go back and start working on that again. So I'm excited to, hopefully I'll have some time this weekend to dive into that a little bit more. I'm also working on getting the distribution set up for the podcast. Like, I think the teaser's up right now. The first episode's scheduled to go out. And something that's a struggle has been Apple Podcasts. I don't know what's going on, but I can't release Apple Podcasts right now. So it's so frustrating. I can't distribute my podcast on Apple Podcasts, and that's my primary way of listening to podcasts. So the fact that I can't get it to work is so frustrating, but I am working on it. I'm going to figure it out. I'm in contact with Apple development team. So we will hopefully get that sorted. And I will see you all next week. Before I let you go, I do want to ask if you could just leave a review on the podcast. If you're listening to this, you're probably one of the last people who is still listening. Leave a review on the podcast app of choice. Go in there, leave a 5-star review. We're going to start reading reviews on the podcast. So I'm so excited for that. First review to leave 5 stars gets a huge thumbs up from me. Don't forget to go to clscstudios.com. That's clscstudios.com and sign up for our quarterly newsletter. That's where you'll get to find out how to get involved with this podcast. You'll also probably be the first to have access to the Discord server. I haven't set that up yet, but it's coming. I promise it's going to come eventually. It could be in a couple weeks. It could be in a year. Who knows? But I am excited to open that up once I figure out how to use Discord. But I think that's it. I think that's all I wanted to talk about this week. And I'm sure you're really confused because you might be listening to this on Apple Podcasts and like, hey, Chase, you figured it out. That's like, because this is me from the past talking to you in the future. And you're like, hey, Chase, you figured it out. Congratulations, man. And hopefully that's the case. And if you're listening on Spotify, it should already be working. And if you're listening on any other platform, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, oh my gosh, leave a comment. I want to see those comments going. I'm so excited to read some comments because I think that'll be the first place where we start building a community is on YouTube. But all right, I'm going to stop rambling. I will let you all go. I will see you next week on the Improve podcast. Bye.